Okay, we are supposedly live. I will kind of wait for everybody to catch up. I'm here with Geof Gambill of the Longview podcast. Jeff, there's like a 30-second delay kind of for the public folks, so we'll be trying to keep
Okay.
keep track. I'll be trying to keep track of the chat if they ask questions and keep us up to speed. But Jeff is a host of the Longview podcast on the Dice Tower Network. And we paid big money to have a Dice Tower guy over here on drive-thru.
Yeah, right.
And so he does basically. If you haven't heard his podcast, I've been on a couple episodes of it. He does
just a few, Joel.
Just like half of them. No.
Yeah.
But he'll do like a long retrospective on a game that usually is a couple of years old, sometimes not, but they'll basically devote an entire episode to one particular game. When we did it together, we did an episode on Kalis. Let's see, Airlines Europe was one. Did we do one on Fleet?
Yep.
Yeah, a couple others.
Yeah, we did Fleet. We did D-Day Dice.
That's right.
Yeah, we've done quite a few of them together. We did the episode on the whole coin series.
That's right.
And we did the Stefan Feld a Palooza retrospective kind of show, where we talked about all of those titles. So, yeah, you've been on quite a bit, probably more than anybody else. So I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to chat with you tonight on your show.
Sure.
I've been a big fan of yours for a long time. And watch your reviews regularly and listen to the show. I kind of first got to know you through Wooden Cubes and Iron Soldiers back when you guys were doing that show on a regular basis, before Marco's family expanded and Lance's family expanded, and things kind of got a little crazy for everybody, especially trying to coordinate through time zones. We're doing a little bit of that now. I'm on the East Coast, and you're way out there in Idaho. So, that's kind of how I first got to know you, and was always watching your videos and your reviews and stuff. And I appreciate all the help that you've given me ever since I've done my show, because you kind of served as my mentor for getting the podcast started, and have always been very helpful. So I just want to kind of acknowledge that and say thank you for all the help that you've given me over the almost 2 years that I've been doing the show.
Oh, well, thanks, Jeff. I appreciate that. It's anytime you call or we chat or anything about the show, it's always fun for me. Kind of a different way of looking at things, and I've always appreciated your show and everything.
Well, thank you.
It's no trouble at all, I should say. But thanks, I appreciate that. I think
thank you.
A worthwhile endeavor. So let's just kind of break the ice a little bit here. What have you been playing lately? Any games or?
Oh yeah, lots of games. I just got the Fleet expansion, Arctic Bounty, and have been slowly kind of dipping my toes into that, and have been really enjoying it. I've only so far played with the.
Uh-oh. Looks like we lost him. That's too bad. Let's see if he comes back. I will probably try to give him a quick call here and see if he dove off there. Let's see. So he was playing Fleet Arctic Bounty, which is an amazing game. Let me just give him a call here, folks. This is the first time this has happened on here.
That's been a lot of fun.
You there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Oh, you
there?
cut out there. Yeah, I lost you.
Did I really? Oh, I'm sorry about that.
Oh, no
okay, are we back, or?
I think so. I'm not sure if I lost you on my side. I don't know if YouTube lost you. You were talking about Fleet Arctic Bounty, and then your image froze.
That's interesting. Yeah, because your image froze on my end, and I got a little message saying network connectivity. So we'll try it again. Hopefully it's not anything that's going to happen again. But yeah, so I've been trying a little bit of the Fleet expansion. And just kind of dipping my toes into that. There's so much stuff in that box that it's going to take me quite a while to get through all of it. And I kind of like the way you can kind of pick and choose and mix and match a little bit some of the things that you can try. So I've been playing that. Over this past weekend, I got to play Steam a couple times. Haven't played that in ages. And just reminded me of how much I like that game.
Mm-hmm.
I taught it to a bunch of new people. and it went extremely well. And it was kind of funny because I was teaching it, and I kind of was struck by really kind of how simple that game is. And
Yeah.
what I mean by that is, like, to explain the rules. I mean that the actual gameplay is really rather simple. You pick a role.
There we just lost him. Hmm. Let's see. That's too bad. He was on a roll there talking about Steam. I'm going to send him this invite again because I think he may need another invite. That's a bummer. Okay. So long.
Hello.
There you are. Did you come back?
Yeah, we dropped again.
Yeah, you dropped and
It's
okay. So
huh.
you were. Let's just pick
I
up.
All right.
Yeah,
Let's just pick up.
yeah, you were talking about
I'm
Steam
Yeah,
and how
I'm gonna
simple it
try
was.
something. I'm gonna try something new here. Even though we're live, if you can all bear with me for a second, I am going to switch here
Okay.
to, well, I don't know. Yeah, I'm gonna switch routers here. Let me see if this helps.
All right. Yeah, we're gonna lose him if he's switching routers. Um, we'll wait for him to come back. Yeah.
All
So
right.
you're back.
Yes, I am back. Okay,
Okay.
we're gonna see if this improves. All right.
Okay.
So yeah, Steam. I was kind of struck by how easy it was to kind of teach. The flow of the game is very simple compared to something like Bora Bora. I've gotten
Yeah.
so used to these games where there's so many options and it takes so long to explain the thing that when I was teaching Steam, I'm like, this really isn't that difficult. But I remember a time when I thought it was really difficult. So
Mhm.
that's been kind of interesting. What else have I been playing? I've been playing a lot of the new Eminent Domain and expansion.
Good deal.
Really been enjoying that. And let's see, taking a look over at the shelf. Circus Train. I've been playing quite a bit of that. I just released a show about that a game. That's great fun.
Hmm.
Very different, kind of a real in-your-face kind of a game, which I really enjoy. And playing a whole lot of Impulse, Joel. Impulse, Impulse, Impulse. So
Hmm.
it's one of my new favorite games, and I can't wait for it to get a wider distribution and release so that more people can hopefully enjoy it. If you're a Carl Chudik fan, I think it's definitely one for you.
Yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to it. We've talked a little bit about it, and it looks really cool, really interesting. Dynamic to the 4X card game, area control. Cards as areas. Looks really cool.
Yeah, it really is. It's fun. It's quick. It's easy to play, and it's always different. Always different. So, what have you been playing?
Um, well, yesterday I played. Was it yesterday? Yeah, yesterday I played Myth, and I uploaded a playthrough of that from my gaming session there, and that was fun. I found a couple more rules I am not playing correctly that I thought I was, but so I've been playing that when I've been playing Galaxy Defenders. I played that towards the end of last week again. Two interesting games, kind of doing the same thing but in very different ways.
Okay.
And what else have I been playing? I have to jog my memory here. Let's see. Well, Eminent Domain and the Fleet expansion, and I also broke out. I'm the Boss, the card game. I think you called me the other day. I
Yes.
think it was last week about a rule question on. Was it that game?
No, I think it was Trieste, but I did
That's right.
talk to you quite a bit about I'm the Boss the card game because it's one of the
That's right.
ones that I was buying for my classroom. So,
Right.
and one that I was trying out with my kids here at home, and that game's a lot of fun. I
Right.
think I may actually prefer that to the board game. It's just it's faster. I like the limited hand that you have.
Mm-hmm.
It seems to make the negotiations and the kind of wrangling between the players a lot faster, a lot more condensed, but still very interesting.
Mm-hmm.
There's always just one or two times during that game when I play with the kids that we're just laughing out loud over who just got totally royally shafted and who
Yeah.
waited till the last second to play that card, which totally just boogered somebody. And
Mm-hmm.
it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun. So are you still enjoying that one?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's one we've. I have this cabinet at work, and games kind of come and go from there as they do. Also, kind of come and go from the shelf. But that one has maintained its position there. We break it out, and then we'll burn out on it after a week or so, and come back to it. But like, yeah, like you're saying there, it's kind of like you're pressing your luck, like how many more red cards does this guy have? How much invested in this pot do I need to get? Before the guy
Right.
reverses everything on me or steals all my stake cards and all that stuff. So yeah, that's pretty fun. And
Yeah, it is.
the whole passing mechanism is really interesting too, because you can pass twice.
Right.
You can like pass and then kind of see what everybody's doing, or you can play like kind of a meaningless card, like a +1. Doesn't really change the pot up that much. Even if you are trying to sabotage it as the players, you can add 1 to it. It's not a big deal.
Right.
Uh,
Right.
but it keeps you kind of involved and being able to kind of suss out what people are doing. So I like that. But
Yeah.
yeah,
No, I enjoyed that.
yeah. I mean, other than that, I think that's all I've been playing really. I am going to play War of the Ring 2 days from now
Ah,
for the
nice.
for the
All
first
right.
time, and I listened to your episode on War of the Ring with Mr. Bonacore and the other two guys, whose names are escaping me. I know who they are.
Chad
That's right,
McCash
Chad.
and
Right.
Lloyd, friend of mine, Lloyd Keller, Fun to Drum on BGG. Yeah, yeah. Just if you play with Steven, just don't trust him with the Witch King. That's the only thing. That's the only thing you got to remember.
That's right.
Still like teasing him about that. So,
Yeah.
yeah, that game is a lot of fun, and I'm very curious about what's going to happen with the Battle of Five Armies one that's coming out now.
Yeah. Yeah. It looks
Um,
good.
because that one looks pretty interesting, but at the same time, I'm kind of thinking to myself, well, unless it's somehow really, significantly different, like if it's going to be maybe a multiplayer kind of a thing, or maybe play in a much more condensed time frame or something,
Hmm.
I don't know how it could beat War of the Ring, so I'm going to
Right.
be curious to see what Ares is doing with that.
Yeah. As will I. As will I. Definitely. So we were chatting, just to get onto our main topic here. We were chatting a few weeks ago when I announced that Board with Life was going to come on the show, and we got to talking on one of our phone calls, and basically kind of talked about the idea of board game media in general, sort of a broad
Hmm.
topic of how that's changed, how it's kind of evolving, where it might be going, and things like that. And so Geof, had some input on that, and I probably do. We're both kind of. I never thought I would say this sentence in my life, but we're both kind of media people, I guess. And
All right.
all right, all right. So now I quit. No, I just said, all right, sorry, I'm just playing around. Um, but so yeah, so Geof, did you want to kind of jump in a little bit there and kind of just give us a little bit of your take on where it's been, where it's going, where how it's come along?
Sure, sure. Um, the whole thing kind of started, I think, as for a couple of reasons, two reasons. The first one was you and I talking a little bit and brainstorming about what you were doing
Hmm.
and the changes that you wanted to try to make and things that you were trying to do and how you were really thinking about, like, how can I do something different in the space that there is right now?
Yeah.
How can I kind of try to approach things in a slightly different manner that's going to add value to people and be something that might be useful and something that is going to be different because we're all human and we all like to kind of do things that people are going to appreciate. We don't do it for nothing. We do it for no money, but we
Yeah.
we really I think both of us, I think it's safe to say, like kind of giving something back. The board gaming hobby has kind of given a lot to me over the years, and really, I just kind of thought, well, it'd be kind of fun to try and do a podcast myself and try and do something a little bit different. And so the conversations that I was having with you over where you were going and the things that you were thinking about doing was kind of half of it. And the other part of it was my own reflection over the show that I'm doing and trying to always kind of think about, okay, am I going in the right direction? Where am I moving personally for the show that I do? Because I started off with a very, very sort of specific sort of format and a very specific sort of niche, which was a very small niche, but one that a nice group of people really responded to immediately. And they've been very loyal and very helpful to me and have been great kind of just listeners that tune in all the time. And I kind of started the show in response to a blog post by a guy named Jesse Dean, who was Doubt of Buddha, I believe, on BGG, and who's very active for a while. He's kind of shifted gears, I think, a little bit, and is trying some different things in his life, and I don't see him popping up that often anymore, but he had kind of posted this sort of call for like a more critical look at board games, like not just another review, not just someone playing a game once or twice and saying this is what I think of it. And so I kind of took that to heart, and I thought, well, I play games a lot. I play a lot of games, and I'm lucky to have a lot of people who enjoy playing games. And so I was kind of thinking, well, maybe I could do a show where I review a game, but maybe after a lot of plays. So like the original idea for my show was, I think you might even remember this, I was going to call it 10 and up. Thinking,
Right.
okay, I'm only going to review a game if I've played it 10 times or more. And, I kicked around different name ideas and whatnot, but, eventually I kind of settled on that sort of idea of I wanted to do something that was going to be a more in-depth exploration of a game. And so I really kind of took off with that and had a lot of fun doing it, met a lot of great people, yourself included, who were coming on the show, and I kind of discovered that people who like a game are very passionate about it, and me included, and they really had a great time just talking about the game, and their vast amount of play experience gave them a lot of things to say, a lot of strategy ideas, a lot of comments about the balance of the game, the theme of the game, the mechanisms or mechanics of the game. And so very easily I kind of discovered, geez, these episodes that I originally thought were going to be like a half hour are running an hour and a half. I did one early on with Eric Martin that was over 2.5 hours long about innovation.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking to myself, no one is going to listen to this. This is crazy. I enjoyed it, but oh my God, who's going to sit and listen to this about one game? And I was really kind of surprised that a lot of people seemed to respond to it. And so I thought, okay, I've hit on something here. I've hit on something that is different. And that's going to be one of the themes that I think we're going to try and talk about tonight, which is, the idea of trying to separate yourself a little bit from the pack, trying to do something in a different way, from a different spin, from a different angle. And so I kind of kept with that format for a long time, and that's still basically my format. But I also love new games. And it was kind of killing me that I could never talk about newer games. And so I started changing the format of my show a little bit and saying, okay, I'm going to actually start including like a new game review at the end of the show. And that's going to give me a chance to talk about new games that I'm excited about, or that maybe my guest is excited about, or a game maybe that I think people might want to take another look at and kind of avoid, or maybe some things that I'm not real thrilled about. I don't like doing negative reviews all that much. I don't know how you feel about it. I kind of think that silence is kind of most often my negative review. If you don't hear me saying anything about a game, there's probably a reason for that. But so I kind of have started to change, but I've been very leery of that change because I don't want to leave my brand. And at the same time, there are people who really seem to appreciate the new part. So that's what really got me thinking, talking to you and looking at my own show about, okay, so where are we personally? Where are we going? And then that got me thinking about board game media in general, because I watched your episode with the Board with Life crew. And they're fantastic. I mean, they're just approaching things from like left field, like totally from a different vantage point than anybody else that I've seen.
Yeah.
And then I think about people who've been around for a while, like Callendale, who will sit there with his pipe and just in his chair, and he'll just talk. He's like, well, actually, and I mean, he's very thoughtful, and it's like you watch his videos, and you're like, oh my goodness, this dude's like professorial. He's just kind of sitting there and, really kind of explaining everything. And so you have all these extremes of sort of content that's available. And because of where we are, I think, personally, in this age that we're living in, there's room for all of these niches. There's not, things are not homogenized anymore. And the earliest, the easiest parallel I can think of
absolutely.
is the old days of like ABC, CBS, NBC, PBS. That was it. And then all of a sudden, you had the little UHF stations, because I'm old enough to remember those. Let's hear it for Philadelphia 48. I remember that, watching the Flintstones when I was a kid with the little round antenna in the back of the black and white television. I tried to
That's
get
right.
that thing working. But once cable started, then all of a sudden, all of these niches opened. It was almost an evolutionary kind of speciation of media. This explosion
Right.
of, well, now we have Spike TV for men, we have Lifetime, we have Fox News, which is going to cater to one sort of predisposition. We've got MSNBC, we've got
Right.
and so now there's this huge proliferation, and I kind of think we're starting to see the same thing in board game media, but not just board game media, but also television. I mean, think about the fact that I think that Netflix show, what was it, House of Cards, I think actually won. They won like an
Right.
Emmy or something.
Yeah, they won some kind of Emmy. I don't remember what it was for, but
Yeah, and they're not even on television. They're not even
right.
broadcast.
Right.
So that to me was kind of like that weird little event was like a shift. It was kind of like
Yeah.
okay, so internet communication is not just out there anymore. It's now becoming more and more mainstream. Then you think about Will Wheaton and tabletop, and so all of these things are kind of floating around in my head. I'm thinking, all right, I'd love to kind of talk to you about where you think board gaming media has kind of come from, where
Right.
we are now, and where you think it might be going. And so that's what kind of led to you and I talking about it, and deciding to maybe talk about it tonight and see if anybody else is kind of curious about this or
Right.
has any ideas. So
Yeah.
what are your thoughts on all this, Joel?
I do have thoughts, but our pal here, Darth Ed in chat, asked you a question which you already answered, but he had a follow-up question, so I figured let's tackle that real quick before moving on.
Right.
He says, which game have you always wanted to cover on the long view, but haven't been able to? And also, feel free to bag on Lance for bailing on Arkham Horror. And Lance actually did ask me. He says, make sure to mention to Geof I still want to do Longview. So
there we go. Yep, Arkham Horror and Urban Sprawl. Those are the two that he's supposed to be doing. Which one have I always wanted to do? Man, that's a really tough call. I think the one that I'm most thinking about, like, I would love to do a show on Imperial. I have played Imperial many, many times. I absolutely love that game. I wouldn't mind doing a Matt Gertz kind of a retrospective, kind of. I mean, not that he's not producing games anymore. He just put out Concordia, but the same way we did with Feld. There's something about Matt Gertz and that rondel that has always kind of fascinated me.
Right.
And but Imperial in particular, I haven't played Imperial 2030.
2030, yeah.
But the base, the regular Imperial, I've played that many, many times and would love to do a show on it and haven't had a chance.
All right, there you go, Darth. I don't know that guy's real name, but he's always popping around.
Darth is all right.
Darth Ed. Well, he's got a nice Ed. I like that in there.
Yes, he does.
So back to my thing. Your question to me was, what do I think it's going? And I'm kind of with you. I kind of think the gates are not necessarily busting open, but they're slowly opening for various types of media. And I think that Bored with Life, honestly, really, I'd like to see more things, not necessarily just like them, but more things that are different, like how they're different. I mean, tabletop obviously has been, probably the most successful piece of board game media ever. But it's really just people sitting around a table playing games, which you kind of see. I mean, we have, Rado runs through and Watch It Played, and other folks and myself now doing like live plays, and even Enrico, like you said, he does a really exhaustive live play and then a review at the end of it. Or obviously, tabletop has a budget, so they have
a lot of slick production values. They have like sofas and stuff that people go and.
Yeah, there's stories about those sofas. I don't know if you know about that.
No, I haven't heard any stories about that.
You're not okay. We're going to digress here a second, folks. For the 10 of you or so that are listening. So if there are kids in the room and you have the speakers on, headphones on, but apparently the couch. You didn't know this, huh? This is a big deal.
No, I haven't heard anything about it.
The loser's couch there on tabletop where Will usually sits. that apparently was used. That whole studio was used to make some pornographic movies, and
Nice.
somehow I think the way I remember finding out about it is a picture, like a real picture of the thing, turned up on Reddit, and they're like, "Hey, look what the tabletop couch is also used for," and it was, some folks doing their thing, and and so there you go. So obviously they're using a shared studio space, I guess, in
Shit.
down in L.A. and
Nice. Nice.
so it
They're
has
subletting. They're subletting it.
yeah, it has multiple purposes, and
Nice. Nice.
if you feel like digging it up on Reddit, or maybe I wouldn't recommend that, but
No,
there's
no,
some
I
great
probably
commentary.
won't.
I would dig it up just for the commentary because it's pretty funny. But whew, that was a sidetrack.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, and it was a kind of a mildly disturbing one too. So thanks. I'm not going to ever be able to watch that show again and not think about what. Yeah. Anyway. All right.
Yeah. So you
Um,
mentioned the couch. So what was our point?
yes.
Yeah, the budget. They had a
The
budget,
budget. Yeah. Yeah.
and so but they kind of just the same thing. People playing games, showing the games played. But Board with Life kind of takes a cool approach where they're kind of around the game. The game isn't really the centerpiece, but it's like a I don't want to speak out of turn for them, but it's kind of like a plot point, and then the relationships of the characters derives around that. Um,
Yeah. Hmm.
and that's cool. I mean, I wish there was more stuff like that where it was just like, in video games they have this thing called machinima. I think that's how you pronounce it. And machinima is where you'll take like footage from a video game, and I think it became most popular with World of Warcraft and Halo, where you could kind of go in and you can like animate your characters and do different things, and then you just add voiceover, and you can put them, especially like in Warcraft, you could like put them in different outfits and different settings, because it's such a world. You could go to the jungle and have and you do like little skits, and they could be
Right. Right.
related to what happens in the game. They could be completely unrelated, and it's almost like a meme almost, but not really. And so you kind of have that kind of stuff unraveling, and there's just all kinds of funny and different kind of media about board games. And I think it's cool that all these different things are hopefully going to happen. And for me, and just getting to my perspective and our discussions, for me, it's just a matter of boredom. And I don't. That sounds really negative. It's not negative like I'm bored, because I'm not. I mean, honestly, I really have fun doing the reviews, and I look forward to getting time to do them and things. And I've said before on other venues, it's kind of an ancillary hobby to the gaming. Sometimes the
Right.
reviews win, and I'm like, I feel like making videos today, and then I kind of burn out in that a little bit, and then I'm like, I'm sick of these stupid videos. I want to play. I want to just play some games for a while. And
Right.
so it's kind of a nice kind of two hobbies that feed themselves. But getting back to the boredom thing, it's like, after a while, it's like, okay, I've done a review, and sometimes it's interesting because I kind of know what I'm going to say before I say it, which you kind of should. But it's like as I'm playing a game, I know exactly what I'm going to say, and as I'm playing the game, trying to figure out if I'm going to do a review on it or whatever. And it's kind of like, man, I'm falling into all of these sort of colloquialisms that are driven out of the hive mind at Board Game Geek and other places. Just naturally, this is how things are. And
Right.
I'm going to say this is a worker placement game with a little bit of player interaction and this and that, and like, yeah. And it's great because people will know what I'm talking about, but it's also a little bit like, but I feel like there's more to it than what the review can do for it. Just a normal review, and we have basically the review format that we've seen. I mean, we're really inside baseball here, but like Scott Nicholson's, Tom Vassell, Lance,
Right.
myself, everybody, we kind of have this format that we've done, and it works. There's a reason that format does what it does, is because it works and it serves a purpose, and I think it's probably the best way to do a review. If people are really into it for just the game, and not necessarily for that reviewer's opinion, or they like that reviewer or don't like that reviewer. If they're like, I just want to know about this game,
Right.
and I'm going to tune into the how to play section. I'm going to pay really close attention to that, and then I'm going to turn one deaf ear towards the review part, because that's what I do. I mean, I think most people do that. I think some people probably put a lot of stock in particular reviewers or maybe a reviewer match to a game. But I think honestly, probably most people turn a half ear and like, okay, I'll listen to what they're saying, but I'm not going to let that completely drive me. But I'm going to pay more attention to the board game segment because they're going to know. They're going to go, oh, cool, Russian Railroad. That's a worker placement game. That's a little different, And if you're kind of a Kalis fan, maybe you'll look at Russian Railroads and just watch the gameplay and be okay. Um, so I think that anyway, that format is really does the job, and there's a reason that everybody just does it that way. But at the end of the day, it's like there's room for lots of different things to happen here, and
Right.
you and I have talked a little bit about um, like different ways to do playthroughs and the feasibility of how to do them,
Hmm.
and kind of getting back to the tabletop thing. A lot of those I think require a budget. But there are things you can do. The interesting thing is about it, like the cool thing about tabletop, and I'm not even sure how they do this, is they do that whole kind of reality TV thing
Hmm.
where they'll be playing a game and then they'll cut away and the guy's like in a corner or something, and they're like, at this moment I was thinking Will was going to screw me over and he had extra money and was going to do this and that, and so that's
Right.
cool because you have not just the game there. You got a little bit more towards what it makes the gaming important. I think is the other players, their input and their perception on what's happening in the events at the table, and so that's cool. But I mean, you know, uh, so I think there's room for people to really play around. I mean, just an example off the top of my head, Richard Ham Rado, who I interviewed like a couple episodes ago, he's running a Kickstarter right now. There's your free plug there, dude. and he one of his stretch goals was suggested by um, a backer, I think, or somebody. Anyway, I saw it on Board Game Geek, and then I went over and I actually backed the project because of that. Is that you get these glasses and that have a camera in them,
Oh,
and you
okay.
know how Richard does his videos, right? Everybody,
Yes.
he does the thing, and so he's just going to have wear glasses, and I'm like, well, that could really work, or it might not work, but I'm really excited to see how that might work.
Right.
Um, and so, there's different things you could do with multiple cameras, and but that would require a lot of editing to kind of splice that together. And
Yes.
but
Yeah.
but aside from a technical point of view, I think there's a lot of interesting things that people can try, and I think you'll end up discovering, like you did with Longview, um, things you don't expect. I mean, you said you thought it was going to be half an hour long. It ended
Right.
up being really long because you found out, well, hey, if I'm going to do a Longview, these people are going to be in love with this game.
Right.
If especially if it's a few years old and they still have it and they're still playing it, and they're now we're talking double digit plays or triple digit plays in some cases.
Oh, yeah.
You're in love with that thing. I mean, to some extent, and you can talk for days about it. So that's one thing I think that Monday morning quarterback says to me. Okay, well that's obvious. Of course they would do that, but you don't really think about what the result product is going to be when you start something. But
No, no, absolutely, absolutely not. And yeah, I think we're at an interesting point because I think the critical mass in board gaming, right? This huge this huge proliferation, if I can get that word out right, of board games. I mean, there's literally just there's got to be close to it seems like what 1,000 titles released last year, just hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of titles. And I think back to when I first got into the hobby. Like you said, you had Scott Nicholson and you had Tom Vassell, but I mean, I remember Tom basically doing written reviews.
mm-hmm.
My first kind of experience with Tom was his written work, and then his podcast. Long before he started doing videos. And
Yeah.
Scott was really unique because he was the guy doing videos, at least the guy that I knew. And when Scott did a video, it was big news. Oh, Scott's going to do a video about Agricola.
Yeah.
And Scott did this whole funny, ridiculous thing in the beginning with the Ricola thing, and
Mm-hmm.
taught everybody how to say the name of the game right. And then, Scott taught you how to play that entire game. He kind of started that format as far as I know,
Mm-hmm.
and talked to you also about strategy and talked to you about the theme, and then he did this whole review thing. And when a new Scott Nicholson video came out, that was like an event.
Mm-hmm.
And now it's kind of like you guys who are doing video in particular, you guys can't keep up. There's so many games. Like I think Scott and Tom, Tom Vasel used to do these exhaustive written reviews, and they were very long and they were very detailed. And Tom would tell you very specifically what he liked and what he didn't like, and all of these kinds of things. And now I watch Tom try to do his board game breakfast and trying to keep up with he always shows you like, here's the pile of games I'm going to try to review this week. And I don't know how he can even keep his head around it, because there's so many games that I don't think you can ever get in front of the wheel long enough to kind of separate the wheat from the chaff.
Yeah.
And so what it's led to, I think, is this explosion of board gaming podcasts, board game video reviews, and I think the reason that they're all flourishing, probably me included, I'm not saying that I'm any different than anybody else, is that there's such a huge space now.
Mm-hmm.
There's so many games. There's so many things to explore. But the problem is that because of all that, I think that there's often a very sort of scattershot sort of feel to a lot of board gaming media that I see. And I think it's because there's just so much coming out. There's such a churn and burn of new stuff that I think it's very difficult to try and do anything new. For example, you and I were talking about things that you were thinking about maybe trying to do with walkthrough videos, and as you just said a few seconds ago, that's going to require a ton of editing. It's going to require a lot of time. And I know that you're the kind of guy who's creative enough that you would not mind doing that at all. But the problem is we're talking about you going from whatever your current output of videos is and cutting that probably at least in half.
Right.
Because of the extra time and attention you're going to have to give to it. And in the meantime, you got people clamoring, hey, Joel, tell us about this game. Or what can you tell us about this one? Or, someone sends you another game. And so it's like, review this. Can you please review that? And so I kind of feel like there's like a sense of overwhelm.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's what leads to a lot of what you're talking about, which is a lot of the sort of content is following that sort of very traditional, tried and true sort of format, because why change that? There's so much that needs to be covered,
right,
that there's no time to even think about trying to be creative or think outside of the box. Would you say there's any truth to that, or am I making too much of the volume of games being released?
No, I think you're. Well, here's my perspective on it. Is I think people will bring to it what their predisposition is. So we talk about Scott Nicholson here, and this is totally conjecture, but he's an educator, and he is a college educator to some degree and a librarian at some point. And so I think the format of his videos, and he kind of set the format a little bit because he was the first guy,
Right.
But his exhaustive videos, because not all of them are what I would call consumable time length. I think consumable time length is 15 minutes or less. 20 minutes is pushing it. But that doesn't necessarily matter for board gamers because we don't have attention deficit problems. Sorry, that was kind of rude.
That's
but
true.
Anyway, but his format kind of feels to me like it's that of an educator, because that's kind of what he does. And if you look at the Board with Life guys, they are actors and writers and comedians in some respect, and so they are bringing that to the table. And I would guess the rest of us, like Tom and Lance, and we have our own personalities and things, but we're kind of gamers. Not that Scott and the Board with Life guys aren't gamers, but we all are kind of adding our own little special things. I mean, I'm a software engineer, so there's probably some kind of super dry analytical thing that comes in. I mean, that's why I get mostly complimented and I don't know, not attacked, but negative feedback is from you're too analytical. And so I was like, hey, it's really good. You're so analytical. But like, okay, I don't know who to please. But maybe that's the software side of me or something, whatever. But I think if we get more types of people involved from different walks of life and different backgrounds, that is going to precipitate more variety. But
So that's yeah,
yeah,
that's interesting. So the change is going to come from different people from maybe different backgrounds or walks of life coming in. So you get someone who came to board
right.
gaming, as a musician, and now suddenly you have people doing reviews as songs.
Yeah,
You
well,
know, someone who sit down and
Castelli, he's the guy from Australia. I don't know if you ever
I'm
watched
not.
his.
No, I don't know who that is. So who is that? Tell me.
Um, I can't remember his first name.
Okay.
I'm subscribed to him on here. If you go and look, he did a review of Maneuver, which is a game from GMT.
Hmm.
It's like a light war game. It's almost like a Command and Colors game. I actually have it.
Very
Uh,
much. Yeah, yeah. I have it in my collection as
yeah.
well. Yeah.
Okay, so he did a cool review of that, and so if you go there, you can find his review and then go find a bunch of other reviews through that. But he adds music and things sometimes,
Right.
but because he'll add some electric guitar and stuff. But his
Everything's better
format,
with electric guitar.
yeah, his format is pretty much the traditional format with a little. Sometimes he adds music and he'll do a little bit of what do you call, like, flash kind of stuff sometimes. But yeah.
Right. Right. Yeah, there's been some interesting other kind of content. Who was the guy? I absolutely loved him. He did the sort of oh geez, was like UFBERT or whatever.
Yeah,
He
yeah. I
did
was just
these
thinking about him.
little like reviews. Yeah, yeah, and they
Hmm.
were brilliant. There were these little flash-based kind of like reviews, very fast, very concise, and usually with a lot of sense of humor. Really well done. And maybe I think that proves your
Hmm.
point. I mean, that's a skill set that he has that I don't have. I mean, I don't have that kind of skill set to put together that kind of content, and he did quite a few of those, and they were very unique, and I remember that I was very drawn to them because what is it, UFBERT? I think it was, I forget exactly what it was.
Yeah.
And I'm terrified to touch my computer for fear that I'm going to drop my whole feed, so I'm not going to
Yeah.
look, but maybe someone out there who might be listening can chime in, and if they know who we're talking about. But
Yeah.
that was a very interesting kind of board game review format, and so I think I think you're onto something there. I think if there's more people coming in, and the sort of democratization, if that's a word, of media now, because all you need is a laptop or something of that nature to be able, a microphone and a headset to start contributing and putting things out there, just like we do. I don't
Hmm.
have any technical experience really at all.
Hmm.
I think it's making it possible for more people to kind of share their ideas. And I agree with you. I think there's a lot of creativity. I didn't want to sound negative when I said, that there's a lot of people kind of following that format. I think that there's a need for it. I think there's such a huge crushing need of people wanting to know, is Russian Railroads a game I should
Hmm.
buy?
Right. But
Because
that
it's not one of
the thing is
50.
that need's going to get fulfilled. So I'd say, I think it's obvious, but if you feel like you've got to get into the game to review new games, you don't need to, because there's plenty of people going to skip through that.
All right.
But if that's what you want to do, then screw it, go for it. But
So where do you think where do you think? I mean, the whole topic of tonight is not just looking back at
mhm,
sort of the progenitors, like Scott Nicholson and Tom Vassell and people like that,
mhm,
and not just the current generation, but also thinking about the future. So where do you think all of this is going? Because one of the things that really fascinates me is I shouldn't say is the questions that you asked me.
mhm,
The questions of what is it really that I'm trying to capture with my reviews? What is it that you're trying to capture? And you and I talked about, well, is it just the game that we're trying to capture, or is it the interplay between the players at the table? Because gaming is such a social kind of experience. I mean, I have tons and tons of fantastic iOS apps on my iPad of games, and I almost never play them.
mhm.
because I would just much rather play a game with a real person. I don't care whether it's a game with my kids or a game that's just me and my wife or someone else. I just don't have there's something about gaming for me that doesn't work if you remove the people.
Yeah.
And so, it's like, how can you capture the experience of playing a game with people in a way that's going to be, number one, meaningful, and number two, doable from a technology standpoint. And that's where you and I were talking about, well, you'd have to have a bunch of cameras. You'd have to have different feeds on different players, and then an overhead cam showing the entire board, and then all this monster editing, and then of course you got sound issues you got to deal with. And so, but being able to capture the expression on someone's face in Circus Train when I steal their elephant act right when they were about to put on this show that was going to just get them a huge amount of points, that would be something that would be worth capturing on film. That would be something like that moment right there when my wife stole my act and deprived me. I'm sure the expression on my face would have probably been something that a gamer would have looked at and went, oh yeah, I know exactly how that feels. I never want to play that game because that would make me so mad I'd flip the table. Or I want to try that because that looks totally awesome. Yeah. And I think that that's something that is sometimes missing from the current reviews that are out there because, in tabletop, they do the cutaway. And then you have, people sitting there, like you said, reality TV, sort of saying, I was thinking that if I did this, that then Tina would be able to, follow up with my move with this. Let's see how it turns out. And then, cut back to the table. But that's kind of artificial, and I think people understand that that's artificial. That's not really, you might be reflecting and recollecting what you were thinking, but there's still something to me that's like artificial about that. It is reality TV, and reality TV to me is a misnomer. Don't go and shoot a show called Survive in a country where survival is a real problem for the people who live there, and you're just pretending that you have to survive. There's something about that that kind of bothers me, right?
Yeah.
So, and it's kind of the same way with these cutaways, with the reality TV style. It's very ubiquitous right now, but I don't know that it feels genuine at the end of the day. So I would be looking for something that would be genuine, that genuine capturing of that moment or that experience in a board game. Is that possible to do you think, or is it something that's going to have to wait until technology comes forward or people start getting a budget to actually do this kind of content, or no?
Well, I think tabletop does come across as genuine, and I'll be honest, there's certain episodes I watch, and to me, it feels like the players are not that enthusiastically or involved or something, and it could just be it's a low-key day, and they're not that animated, or sometimes it feels like they're over-animated. But I think it's because of the celebrity kind of thing happening, and I don't know that you can get away with that, or get away from that, because I don't know who would really want to watch other people play games that weren't celebrities,
Right, yeah. Who would want to watch me play a board game? I agree. That's a good point. That's a good point.
And so I do agree with you. Sometimes I'll watch an episode of Tabletop and I'm like, this doesn't feel, it's not connecting with me. I'll at least say that. And honestly, it feels like either they're faking it or they're just not into it, and so whatever. But other times I watch it and I'm fully involved, and I'm like, man, I wish I was there playing with them because it looks like they're having a great time, like an honest-to-goodness great time. And I think that's just going to happen. I put out horribly awful reviews, I'm sure, and some reviews are going to be better than others, just like, some tabletop episodes can be better than others. But I think that format, like you're saying, is a good format. But I don't think that's the only thing to capture in a game. I think that, that's doing a good job and going a long ways to capturing the player-to-player dynamics. But that's not all that is there for games. You have this whole thematic element, and which is there's a mixture of that, because if I'm playing a game solitaire, like I played Myth yesterday, solitaire, pretty much, in front of everybody, but everything that was going on in my head was me, and it was all my influence in the game and me kind of reacting off each other. So I think there's some elements there to explore. I don't know if it's just like playing with dolls, kind of thing. But I mean, there's an aspect of that to it, and there's an aspect of sort of make believe. And Myth is a good game in that sense because it's kind of a sandbox game, and
Right.
that's what you do. You get your GI Joes, or whatever, and you play in a sandbox, and the GI Joes are killing the Transformers and rescuing Barbie, and building the fortress, and then the whatever, all the different pieces are in there. So it has that sort of make believe, imaginary kind of thing happening. So I think that's a whole other aspect of board gaming and board game media that I don't think that's been explored at all. Uh, Board with Life gets into that a little bit. They kind of toe the line between reality and the unreality by kind of mixing in sort of the theme of the game
Yeah.
into sort of the theme of the episode. Very, very tenuous, and I kind of wonder if it's me reading into it, if they're kind of purposefully doing that. Um, but so you got that side of it too, and I think there's a lot of different aspects of the gaming. If you take a look at historical games, there's
Mm-hmm.
exploration that's happening there when you're reliving, I don't know, 1775,
Right. Right.
and so yeah, so there's elements there that I don't even know how you would cover it in media, but
Yeah, it is an interesting kind of an idea. How do you try to portray the internal sort of movie that is going on in your head when you're playing a game that is richly thematic. I'm thinking about. I've been playing a lot of Betrayal: A House on the Hill. I forgot to say that. I got that for my kids after going to ConCon, which is a wonderful little convention in Stamford, Connecticut. There's your free plug. Wonderful convention. And I played Betrayal for the first time and
huh,
absolutely loved it because it was everything that I kind of had heard that Arkham Horror was, but without the massive rules overhead. I mean, it's such a simple game. You move, you flip a tile, you read a card. It's all very thematic. It's like Scooby-Doo the board game.
right, right.
But if Shaggy goes insane in the middle of it and tries to kill everybody.
That sounds
Or
like an
Scooby
awesome
tries to eat
episode of
her.
Scooby Doo.
It does, doesn't it? It's like so there's no Scooby snacks. There's no food. But yeah, it's just such a fun game. But the narrative that's going on in my head, the story in my head, is, as you said, it's very. It's so much fun, and I don't know how you would convey that. I
Oh,
was playing a
yeah.
game, and it was with the Invisible Haunt,
Hmm.
and the Invisible Haunt had just attacked my daughter in a room that was near, and I had the dynamite, and so we knew the haunt was in that room, and with apologies to my daughter, I heaved the dynamite into the room with her, thinking, well, at least I know the haunt's in there. Sure enough, my daughter got blown up, and she still hasn't forgiven me. But my wife, who was the haunt, escaped. And
Ah,
but I mean that's a story. Like I saw that whole thing, like me running down this ridiculous. For some reason, when we were building the house, the tiles had flipped up. It was a collection of every hallway that is in that game. They were all just connected. It's like hallways to nowhere, hallways going to hallways, and then to
yeah.
statue. And it's like I could just see my character, Ox, running down the hallways,
Hmm.
and going through and lighting the fuse and then heaving it in the room. And
Right.
it's this story that's in my head, my imagination, and maybe that's my old role playing days coming back to me. But I don't know how you would capture that, other than this incredibly expensive process of showing something about a game and then cutting away to an animated featurette, and
Right.
I don't have the skill to do that,
Right.
but I think that there's a lot of space, like you said, to explore there. You and I had talked about music and trying to sort of incorporate thematic kind of like music that fits the theme of the game that you're talking about
Hmm.
as part of the review to kind of
Yeah.
lend a little bit of that atmosphere. And of course, the main issue with that is copyright issues. Of course, that's something that would be difficult to work around.
Yeah.
But that's the kind of thing that I think would add something, as silly as it sounds, because I think most of us out there have seen a movie with a brilliant soundtrack that has
Hmm.
like brought us to tears. And then
Sure.
we've also seen movies that were ruined by a horrible, horrible synth music kind of terrible soundtrack.
Right.
And so I think that music can add so much mood to any kind of media that it would be something that I think would add value to any kind of board game media as far as reviews or presentation or trying to let people know the experience of what the game would be like. And I think publishers know this because you look at like Fantasy Flight and other companies that the sort of canned videos that they put out for their products often feature that. And I think that Drakenstrike used that to great effect as well
Oh yeah.
in his videos, which of course were ridiculously high production quality. So, but now he's not working anymore. So I don't know whether that was copyright problems or whether he's just moved on to something different in his life or what can you say about that whole aspect of things? Because I'm not a video guy, so I don't have to
Hmm.
worry about any of that. I just, make up a couple little tunes on GarageBand and have those as my nice cheesy little intro music and
Yeah.
segment music, and everything for me is copyright free because it's just speech. What's it like for you, or what have you heard from other video reviewers? I mean, what are the issues there?
Well, I mean, yeah, with music, you can get plenty of free music on the internet, and like in Compotech and SoundCloud is one. I think you got to pay for their stuff, but so there's royalty-free stuff you can grab, or you can buy stuff that's kind of mood music and things like that. And obviously, there's certain games that kind of lend you to certain soundtracks. I mean, obviously, if you were to do a video of War of the Ring, you'd want to throw in the, you know, Lord of the Rings movie soundtrack on top of that, or whatever,
Right.
Star Wars. Uh, but yeah, I mean, that's it's. I like that. I mean, that was one of the reasons that I started making videos. Honestly, is when I saw There was a couple of reasons, but one of the reasons was I saw Drakenstrike's videos, and I said these are friggin' amazing. And because music is such an emotional thing, it's hits you right in that Abdullah oblongata or whatever it is in the back of your brain. And it really kind of sets the mood for the review. I think you watch a movie and it kind of comes with this either like very quiet music or kind of
Right.
epic music or really techie sci-fi music, and you're like,
Right.
boom, that kicks in. That's just that little extra piece of sort of that imaginary thematic stuff that
Right.
kicks in. So now I've got the right sort of attitude to go into the review and into the game. And then now you tell me how the mechanics work, and then there we go. Boom, nice little package. Um, but like I ran into a lot of issues and stopped doing music on my stuff because, well, it's a long story. But I basically had my YouTube account deactivated from uploading any videos longer than 10 minutes for the longest time, and there was actually a bug in YouTube, coming to find out, and so, but at that point, it just kind of stopped me. I was like, screw this. I'm not going to screw around with this. And
Right.
then, and ads would sometimes be on my videos and sometimes not, based on the music. And I just didn't understand what was going on because it was like you'd see things on the internet, on YouTube, they're like, oh, they use the song, no big deal. They're just like reposting the entire song on their channel, with like lyrics or something. And I was like, cool, I can steal like 30 seconds of this, and I wasn't like monetizing my channel or anything. I was just
Right.
putting it up because I thought it was neat. But at the end of the day, I was like, okay, it's not worth it because I'd have to like try the music out and see if it was, because they have different levels of copyright on YouTube. Some people don't care. Think of it from a band perspective. Pearl Jam doesn't care if you go to their show and record it and throw up the whole video on YouTube.
Right. Right.
Metallica, on the other hand, as everybody knows, they have the opposite opinion. So they don't want you recording, any millisecond of their songs and doing anything with it. So it's tricky there. But I do think that music is cool and music is important. I always have music playing. Not always. I used to always, with different groups, have music playing when we played games.
Right.
We wouldn't necessarily put on anything thematically appropriate, but we'd put on some nice alternative rock and, kind of set the stage, little kind of noisy, fuzzy kind of sounds, and nothing really you could distract you too much and latch your head onto. Kind of like classical music works that way.
Right. Right.
But yeah, so we put that on, and that I will listen to My Bloody Valentine and a couple other bands. That band name sounds worse than it is, but when I hear that song, I remember gaming,
Right.
and
Right.
so there's an attachment there as well.
Well,
But
it does definitely make a connection, I think, and
yeah,
the more of those things that you can put into, um, the product that you're trying to make, I think the more powerful it's going to be. But again, the problem is that doable? Well, rather than just talking about, how could any of us, whether you're a podcaster, I've gotten my share of comments over audio. I have audio issues, quite frankly. It seems like I always have something going on with audio, and it's very difficult to kind of nail down. Um, and all of these kinds of things, there's always ways that we can improve what we do. But I guess the next question that I wanted to ask you is, where do you think all of this should be going? I mean,
mm,
is board gaming reviews and podcasts like me, like talking about board games and why we like them, or why we think that they're good games or better than average, is that the end of the road, or is there somewhere else that this should be or could be going that that isn't there yet? And I don't even have an answer to that question myself, to be honest with you. I'm not sure that it has to go any further than it has. But I think if we're going to talk about board game media, I think we kind of need to at least look at the idea of, like, is there somewhere else that all this could be going? And I think I'm sandbagging you with this one a little bit because we haven't really talked about this before. But I'd just be kind of curious, what your reaction to that would be. I mean, is
well,
there somewhere else to go, or are we kind of just looking at trying to perfect our particular niche or niche, or what niche, or whatever the word would be? Are
yeah.
we just trying to kind of perfect that, or is there somewhere else that we could be going?
I think I was going to kind of say nowhere, and it should just go where it should go. But that's a kind of a dodge answer. I will say I think two things though. I think it should keep doing what it's doing. So I would never say to Tom Vassell or Rodney or
Right.
anybody or Lance or yourself, stop doing what you're doing. You're doing it wrong, because I don't think anybody is. But I also think we need something else too, and I think those things need to happen simultaneously. Because I think it would be cool, uh, you know, to have different stuff happen. That's all I'm saying is I think everybody that's doing what they're doing now should just keep doing it. And the people that want to change should change, and the people that are want to get into it and do something different, they should. They should just do it. And like getting back to Richard's thing with the sunglasses that are the video camera. I mean, I
Right.
think people should just try it. Just do different stuff. Hook up 5 cameras and with different colored filters and whatever, and add in special effects and sound effects. And that's one thing tabletop does a little bit of. When something happens, they'll like do little spooky sound effects or music or something that goes with the mood and stuff like that. That's really cool. Because at the end of the day, I think all those things will be interesting for new people in the hobby, really.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, I just think people should just do whatever.
Okay.
But I don't think that I think by just nature of evolution, people's production values are going to go up, and
Oh yeah.
and so that's just going to happen.
No, I think you're right about that. And I think that because the technology is getting more available, cheaper, easier to use, all of those things, I think that you're right. I think you're just going to continue to see people trying new things, but also continuing to do the same kind of things that we do. Which is podcasting and making video reviews, and now you're doing the video walkthroughs, and I'm almost done with your first Cuba Libre, by the way, and I'm enjoying that quite a bit.
All right.
Fantastic game, and
Yes.
one that again, I know there's a lot of people out there who would really appreciate a walkthrough of that, because those games can be a
Yeah.
little bit intimidating if you haven't played that style game before. So
Mhm.
kudos to you on that one. yeah, I don't really know that I have an answer to the question that I posed myself. I don't know that it does need to necessarily go anywhere, but I would like to see maybe more integration
Mhm.
of different kinds of technology, just kind of different kinds of media, different ways of kind of showing the the effects of games and the experience of playing a game. You know,
Mhm.
I keep coming back to that experience thing, like some way to capture an experience.
Right.
Um, some way to get like feedback. It's like you almost wish you could like hook players up to like biofeedback or something and see how they felt when they played.
Right.
See the points in the game where they just got really just super focused or super excited about something that was going on,
Mhm.
and I think that would tell you a lot about games. But at the same time, you see that has been used. That kind of idea has been used in politics for years now. Every presidential debate I watch now, I have to watch this stupid little line
The
as it
dial
goes
thing,
up
yeah.
and down as people go, "Oh, I like that," and "Oh, that's terrible." So it's not like I'm necessarily suggesting that,
Don't suggest
but
that,
like,
Jeff. Don't
no, I'm not.
suggest it. Somebody will do it.
Because somebody will. Oh no! Well, it's too late. The idea is out there. But like but what I mean is like any way to kind of capture the sort of experience of a game, I think would be a great thing. And I think smarter people, younger people, and brighter minds than mine are probably going to have to do it because. I'm not really made for video. There's people that would say I'm not even made for audio. So I think that's not going to be me, but I'm sure going to be really curious to watch it and see where it goes because I do think that the future is kind of bright for the hobby in general.
Right.
Every time I go to Target, I'm encouraged. There's more and more people that I see who, when I talk about gaming, they don't always look at me now like I'm insane. Like they sort of like, oh, you mean like Ticket to Ride or Catan or something. Like there's people out there who are kind of there's
Hmm.
more and more people who have some background and experience and they know what this is about. And so we immediately have that kind of shared dialogue that we can now start to have. And I think that's one of the great things about all of this media is because at the end of the day, it's really people who are passionate about gaming and who enjoy gaming like yourself or me or Lance or anybody just sharing that enthusiasm with anybody else who wants to listen, and
Yeah.
we don't have to worry about getting picked up by the network for next season. There is no
Right.
network. The network is
Right.
the internet.
Right.
I don't know what kind of changes are going to come down the line with the whole net neutrality thing and all of that. But for right now, we're still living in this kind of era of
Right.
sort of unfettered creativity and ability to sort of post and communicate and share.
Yeah.
So I think that's a really good thing. But I'm just kind of personally a little overwhelmed by just all of the options that are out there in the media.
Hmm.
Um, even when it comes to just our hobby with board gaming,
Right.
there's just so much that's out there. And I just want to circle back to one thing that you said earlier because I kind of disagreed with it,
Okay.
but I don't.
Okay.
Which was you were talking about how like, well, people usually watch reviews to watch the board game part. How's the game played? And
Yeah.
then they kind of tune out for the review. And as you were saying that, I just kind of wanted to throw out there to you. I'm exactly the opposite. I usually fast forward through a lot of your playthrough,
Hmm.
and I go to your opinion
Jeff, I'm hurt.
because no, because well, it's because
I'm teasing you.
okay. I really like there are people, and I think that what has happened is there are people who are out there who I think that one of the great things about all of the people who are now doing video reviews and audio podcasts is that people are able to find people that really kind of match them or that they have an affinity with. And
Yeah.
so
Sure.
at the end of the day, I don't need to watch you play Russian Railroads. I don't know why I keep saying Russian Railroads. I've never played it before in my life. But anyway, I don't know why. I don't need to watch you play it. I just want to know what you think of it.
Okay.
Because I know enough of your kind of gaming tastes
Right.
that your opinion is probably going to mirror a lot of what I would think about it, a lot of what
Right.
I would feel about it.
Yeah.
And so I don't know that people disregard the reviewer. I think a lot of people, I can't imagine I'm the only one. I think there's a lot of people out there who really value more what the reviewer thinks of the game, especially with the volume of games that's out there, than watching it played. It's a worker placement game. Yeah, I know what that is.
Yeah, I think when I was saying that before, it was a slightly different context. I think there are people that watch the reviewer for the reviewer, like you're
Mm-hmm.
saying. Um, but I also think there's another type of person that knows what they like,
Yeah.
and they know the style of game that they like. So if they are, I'm not like this, but I know there's people that are like strict Euro folks. They don't want to
Right.
play war games. They don't want to play anything with dice. Whatever the stereotypes are, I can throw out here. They want to play Euros, and that's it. And so they will be interested in Euro games, whatever that first video is that hits. That's on Russian railroads. They're going to watch it. They're going to watch the how to play, and if the how to play is decent, they'll get a good idea of how to play the game, and then they'll
Right.
kind of know what's going on. They maybe will lurk on the forums. Maybe they'll listen to the review. It'll be kind of like with one ear open and one ear closed, I think. But I think most people, and I mean, this is kind of how I am, is I'll watch the mechanics of it, or I used to, and I'll be like, hey, this is what I'm doing here. This sounds exactly right up my alley, or that mechanic looks really odd, you know. But that's because I've been playing for a while. I think a new player
Yeah,
hasn't been
definitely.
exposed to everything. It's the whole idea of the gateway game. If the first game you play, let's say, is Settlers of Catan, and then you come in and you're like, oh, we're getting bored of this. I know there's these other board games out there. Let me pop on Board Game Geek and ask for a recommendation. Then they get, the deluge, and they try Ticket to Ride, and they say, Ticket to Ride, that sucks. I don't like that game. And so they come back, and then somebody says, oh, try Twilight Imperium, and they go, oh, I don't like this game either. So they kind of have to you got to whittle your tastes down to a point, and then you're going to play, 5 years later, you're going to come back to Ticket to Ride, you're going to come back to Twilight Imperium and be like, oh, I kind of see how these games work now. Because the weird thing about this hobby is you kind of build up like a vocabulary.
Yeah.
And I think, I mean, not everybody's going to behave this way, but I think you kind of add these little mechanisms in your head, and you kind of figure out how to use them and have fun with them. And then at the end of the day, you come back and you're like, hey, let me try that game again. I kind of should look at that.
Right.
But a lot of times there's certain games I've come back to and I've been like, no, I don't like it. But now I know. But now I know exactly why I don't like it. And
Right.
before I couldn't really put my finger on it. So there's that aspect of it. But I'll just want to say, unless you got something to follow up with, there are some questions here.
Sure.
I wanted to get one last thought out, at least this, and then I'll let you get anything in you want to get into before we go into questions. Well, back to kind of the media idea, is I think and it kind of dovetails out of this, how people watch reviews. Do they watch for the gameplay walkthrough or the mechanics instructions, or do they watch for the opinion? And I think the interesting thing to me about board games, and to a different degree, maybe a lesser degree, other tabletop games, is they are media themselves. I think they are artistic. They're all the stuff, and they are different ways that we interact with each other, apart from iPads and computers and Facebook and Twitter and whatever, and and television. And so to me, they're ways to explore. I don't know about relationships, but another way to explore a relationship, all this kind of other dynamics. And I'm getting a lot of feedback on your side all of a sudden.
Really?
Do you have headphones on?
Yeah, I do.
Oh.
Yeah. Are you hearing yourself, or are you just
Yeah,
hearing?
I'm hearing me all of a sudden.
That's odd. Okay.
Okay.
I can try to turn you down.
Yeah, turn me down a little bit there. All of a sudden,
Okay.
just all of a sudden
I'll turn you
shut
down.
up.
That's
Okay.
interesting. Okay.
Sorry about that,
Tell me
folks.
about it.
I couldn't hear myself think there for all of a sudden. Where was I? Oh, different media. So I think it's I don't know. I'm kind of have a weird agenda, opinion or slash whatever on this. I think people should hang out more and be on the internet less. As ironically hypocritical as that is. But anyway, so I think people will come at these medias for different agendas and different goals in mind with what they're going to get out of the game, whether it's theme or interaction and all this stuff. Um, so I think there's a lot of extra aspects to explore, and like we were saying, with the person-to-person interaction, like tabletop does, or playing with dolls, like a thematic, sort of game, or with some animation thrown in there. So I think there's room here for a lot of extra discussion above and beyond what's actually happening now. And that's kind of my last point. I kind of forgot the rest of what I was going to say, but
That's all right. That's all right. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know that I really have any other major points other than I want my one wish list for future of board gaming media is that trying to use technology, trying to use just artistry, whether it's filming or whatever, to try to capture that experience that you have when you play a game. Because I think that you really can't judge a game. I'm not going to say you can't judge, but I think it's sometimes not fair to judge a game until you've had the experience of playing it. And yet,
oh yeah,
I tell people all the time what I think of a game, and whether I think a game is great or whether I think it's worthwhile or it's a game I don't care for, like Warriors, which I can't stand.
mm-hmm.
But you know, I think you need to kind of. I think like people would have understood why I disliked Warriors so much if they had been able to watch me play it. And
Yeah,
that's not a
gotcha.
narcissistic thing, even though it
Mm-hmm.
sounds like it
No,
is.
I know what you're
But like
saying. Yeah.
if they had watched me and my daughters and my son sitting down to play that game, and the sort of procedural kind of just little circular sort of just endless spiral that it was, it just didn't seem like there was anything meaningful. I think you would have seen my boredom. I think
Yeah.
you would have seen the sort of frustration over bad draws, bad rolls, feelings of people just kind of shrugging their shoulders and like, I got no control, I got nothing. And I think that would have summed up much more eloquently what I saw in that game. Even though there's tons of people out there that love it, I think there's also an equal amount of people who probably feel like I do and feel that the game is just not all that great. And I think that would have been more valuable than me just sitting here telling you about it, me just sitting here describing it or kind of giving that opinion. And so I would love to see a way to kind of capture more of that in board game media so that it's not just about, okay, does that sound cool enough for me to pull the trigger and spend $50?
Yeah.
What am I going to get out of it? What kind of experience am I going to get out of it? Because like you said, most of us board game because of the fun that we have with other people. It's not just a solitary thing. And that's not a knock on, solo gamers. I'm just saying that I think even solo gamers, given the opportunity to play with other people, would probably enjoy that too. I don't think they're going to turn it down. I think that, it's something that is part of just who we are. People are social by nature. Look, we're sitting here talking about stuff like this just because we're social by nature. So that would be like my wish list. That's what I'd like to see. I'd like to see that creativity that you're talking about, and I really look forward to it because, like you, I think it's going to happen, and I'll be curious to see what direction it takes.
Mm-hmm.
So you said we had some questions.
We do. We fell behind here. So
all right, here we
I'm
go.
going to try to catch us up. First question here is from Bull. He says, Geof, I really enjoy the yearly retrospective segments you do, but I've noticed sometimes they're on the show, sometimes they're not. Is there some sort of schedule you have with doing them? I think he's talking about we go back and look at 1995 or, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, here's the deal with that. I have not ditched them from the show entirely, but I started to get into realms and years by going backwards that I didn't have a lot of experience with.
Mm-hmm.
And if my guests that I had on, when we talk about it, we say, hey, we're back to like 1992. Would you like to do that? And then we'll kind of, my guest will like look through the list and I'm like, man, I haven't played any of these games. I have nothing to say about them.
Yeah.
And I'll look, and if I have some experience or I have something to say that I think people might want to hear or that I have something I want to share, I'll do it. But otherwise, I had a couple episodes where, I would go down the list of games and I'd be like, oh, so what do you think of this one? And they're like, I don't know. I haven't played that. And so after, so it's not that it's gone away, but I have to wait until I talk to like Joe and Eric and guys like that, Joe Huber and Eric Brocious,
Yeah.
guys who have, I think, played every game that has been made, and not only played it once, but played it many times.
Right.
I can talk to those guys about whatever year, and we're going to get some great stuff. But if my guest isn't really comfortable talking about a year, I just leave that out. So that's the answer to that question. Long-winded as usual.
Yeah. And he had a follow-up, how far back are you thinking of going with them? And I think that just, as far back as you can, I guess.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, until I run out or until there's some sort of a weird vortex that swallows me up.
Let's talk about the best games of 1901. Oh, there's nothing here. Okay.
Fisticuffs would be the best game. It's a game of men. Anyway.
Next question from Paul Incow. Have you guys ever changed your opinion on a game after watching another video reviewer's take on a game? Any examples? I don't know. I don't think I've changed an opinion. Because if I've played a game, I have my opinion, It's like, that's it. It's done. It's locked in, I may have, I don't know. Honestly, I don't think so. I may have watched a review or read a review or something before I played a game, and that maybe tainted me. That's for sure. And I couldn't tell you off the top of my head. I can't think of one off the top of my head. Sorry, Paul. But I don't think it's ever changed my opinion. Somebody may have said, hey, try this game with this variant or something. Like Lance has been on me to try Quarriors with the new variants, which I actually have, and it doesn't fix the game for me. I will say I'm interested in Marvel Dice Masters, which is basically like Quarriors with collectible cards. That looks really cool.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't look cool at all.
Oh, yes, it does. All right.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't make any sense. I don't like it anyway. I'm getting all curmudgeonly about that. I mean, I don't know, Joel.
Hold on there, Jeff. Your sound's wigging out there.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
Are we back?
Yeah, we're back. Can you connect and reconnect again? Because it's really distorted, like unintelligible.
Okay. How do I do that?
I tell you what. Let me just do this real quick, guys, because I'm sure it's sounding like this for you guys. Go ahead and hang up.
Okay.
And then I'll re-invite you.
Boom.
All right, sorry about that, guys. I'm pretty sure it was going to be sounding like that for everybody, but it sounded like he was a robot. So let me just device. Just double check the chat there. I don't know if that happened. Was that happening for everybody else? I know it'll take you a few seconds to catch up, but let me know if that wasn't happening, and I could have just ignored it. So I re-invited Jeff to come back. Let's see if he comes back. Come back. All right. So we'll try to catch up here. We don't have too much longer to go. Sorry about the technical difficulties. If you guys were on earlier, he kept dropping, but I'm not sure what was going on there with that. May have to give him a call here. Let's see. Sorry. Should plug in this phone. My phone's gonna die. So while we're waiting, go ahead and throw some stuff in chat, because I feel like I'm talking to nobody. Okay, he was garbled on your end. Okay, good. Thanks. Thanks for that. Appreciate that. All right. So I don't see Jeff. No, Jeff. All right, let me give him a call. Hold on just a second. How's it going? I sent you an email. Yeah. You're popping in? There you are.
All right.
You're on some. There you are. Okay.
There we go. All right.
I'm hanging up.
Well, that was interesting. Okay.
Yeah. I checked with the folks in chat. They said that you were really garbled too, so it wasn't just me. But you sound good now. You sound good.
All right,
You
good.
sound great now.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
All right, so Paul had asked a question about
Right.
have
You
I ever
changed
had
your
my
mind.
yeah. I don't know that I've ever had a video reviewer change my mind. I have disagreed with video reviewers. For example, I don't know, you. I like Amerigo, and you don't.
Oh.
I really, but I think
But
again,
you're, I don't know what they put in the water in Philly there.
I have enjoyed that game, and I think you're right though that a review can color my expectations, and sometimes
Sure.
you wonder whether or not your expectations being too high or too low has an effect on your perception of a game eventually, and I really had very low expectations for Amerigo after watching your review and listening to you talk about it, and then I played it and I'm like, hey, this is kind of cool. I didn't really seem to have the issues that you had with it, and I played it a bunch and I was like, no, I disagree. And that's okay. But as far as like having a review change my mind about a game that I already disliked, I'm going to say no. But I have had, I have reacquired. Somebody actually put a thread on my guild page. Games I've bought because of the long view, and I think I've actually reacquired more titles after listening to people talk about a game. Like I remember I played Reef Encounter. And I thought Reef Encounter was kind of a cool game, but it didn't really I was just like, it's okay, it's interesting, it's good, but it wasn't really getting to the table. I really didn't particularly think it was awesome. And then I did the show about Reef Encounter, and it kind of opened up a whole slew of kind of a new understanding of the game for me, and then I reacquired it and started playing it again, and I'm like, oh, this game's great. And so I think that sometimes I've had my mind change to go back and look at something again that I had dismissed.
Yeah.
And found something better. But I don't know, like you said, that I ever hated a game and then had someone do a audio review or a video review, and then I go, oh, I was completely wrong. I don't think I've ever had that happen. Not to say that it won't, but I can't recall. No.
All right. Okay. So the next question. Okay. All right. Well, message from Rodney. His take is: try not to do everything hot. It will drive you crazy, and just follow what he drives you personally, and then that should keep everything fun. I'm summarizing. But yeah, that totally is good advice. Just pick games that you are interested in. If you get the first review of it, great. If you don't, you don't. But if you're, just do what's fun. I got some more comments about that.
I think people hear, Joel, when you're having fun. I think it comes across, and I think he's absolutely right, which is,
absolutely.
I'm not going to do an episode about a game that I absolutely despise, because I can't see myself talking about something that I disliked for 45 minutes or an hour. And I'm also just not mean enough to sit there and trash on something that long. I mean, I came close with Quarriors.
Yeah.
And interestingly enough, I got a lot of feedback about that people were like, you didn't understand the game, or you didn't give it a fair shake. And so I kind of went away from that kind of SmackDown sort of episode format and left that by. And I think that's good advice, because I think if it's something that I feel strongly about, it's going to come through, whether it's audio or video.
Hmm. Okay. Next question. Or Darth Ed, he says he watches Game Night on Board Game Geek TV channel all the time. I think he was responding to a quote I said about people not wanting to watch non-celebrities. So yeah, and that's true. I have watched a couple of those. Um, but so that is true. You caught me. But I will say Game Night's definitely not as popular as tabletop.
No.
But you know what is so right. So maybe there is room for. I don't know that it has to necessarily be celebrities, but you got to have dynamic personalities that are sort of
Yeah.
bubbly, entertaining. It's going to depend on the game. I don't know. I mean, I think there are going to be exceptions to the rule, but I think for the most part, you're going to want good-looking people, whatever that is. Unfortunately,
Hey, I'm gonna
um,
go over here now.
jeez. Um, but I mean, I'm talking about for the masses, and
Yeah,
the
absolutely,
unwatched
absolutely. Yeah.
rabble that is superficial. I'll just make sure that I'm not a part of that. All right. So next question is: Do you? I'm trying to be politically correct and screwing up. Do you feel the pressure of having breaking news or exclusive content in your shows? Is there
Mm,
competition in board game media?
mm.
Um, kind of with the breaking news and exclusive. I don't know about exclusive content, but I don't really care about that. It's kind of nice to be the first guy to do a video, though. I mean, honestly, I think that's less important now for me. I don't know that it was super important before, but I think my views is at this point. Again, I'm trying not to sound conceited or anything or whatever, but I think the views are just going to come now. So that's okay. Like I'm at the point where I have enough subscribers on my channel directly that I think the folks that have found me, and yes, there's more people that can find me, but you know, um, so I don't necessarily feel a pressure to be exclusive or first on something like I
Right.
used to. It does help because most people, like I said, that's why I think people like the walkthrough. The opinion is secondary because if you're first, well, when I'm first, the views are much higher than when I'm second,
Right.
than when I'm third, and when I'm fourth. And I think it's because, and the feedback doesn't change. The amount of positive versus negative feedback does not change if I'm first, second, or third. So I don't think the quality changes. So what I'm saying. So if I'm first, though, I get more reviews, more thumbs, and more views and all that because I think people jump at that, they see how the game works, and then they go, yeah, for me or not for me. I
Right.
think I
Right.
don't know. I could be wrong. And then, but I don't know what you think about. And then also, is there competition in board game media? I'd say yeah, but it's friendly, so
Yeah.
who
Yeah.
cares?
Yeah. I would say it's an interesting thing because we're at two kind of different spaces. I'm still trying to build the brand
Yeah.
for my podcast. And I say that only like half-heartedly. I don't even have a web page, which people keep telling me I got to have a web page.
Hmm.
So I'm only working on it so hard, but
Yeah.
I am still actively interested in trying to build the brand, trying to build the show. Um, but my brand in and of itself kind of is counterintuitive when it comes to new games, and
Right.
so I kind of miss out on a lot of that, and that has been it's been fine, but it has been it is interesting to me because a lot of my audience that does listen, they don't always respond real well when I do an episode about a game that's newer, and yet when I look at the statistics for how many times that episode has been listened to,
Hmm.
if I'm doing a game that's newer, say that's
Right.
that I just have played a lot. For example, um, I was heavily involved in playtesting CO2, and so I played the heck out of that game before it was even released. And
Right.
so I was ready to do a long view of it, and I actually think I was one of the first to do something about that game.
Right.
And a lot of people were just like, "Oh, why are you doing a long view on a game that hasn't even been released to the general public yet? That's not a long
Yeah.
view." And I'm like, "Well, it is because I've played it enough. It is because I really do know this game, and so there might be value for people to kind of hear what the game's all about and a lot of the details about the game. And so I had a lot of people who their initial reaction was kind of negative. They're like, no, 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 this isn't what you are. This isn't what
Right.
you do. And then when I looked at the statistics, the number of downloads, it was huge.
Okay.
At least huge at that time, right?
Yeah.
So there's this real push and pull thing that I have going on with my show, and I'm hoping I've kind of solved that problem by putting a sort of new game review segment at the end of the show. And then that way, people who really don't care to hear about that because that's not what they listen to me for, they don't have to listen to it. But quite often I'm finding that people are listening to it. And I try to usually pick games that my guest has played so that we're still talking about games together. It's not always just me talking.
Right.
And so I think that lends a little bit of fun to it and a different perspective, that people enjoy in the same way that people really enjoy Tom's videos with Z and Joe and when they sit down and they talk about a game together. I think anytime you have multiple people talking about a game, it opens up some sparks, some opportunities that you don't always get when it's just you talking,
Yeah, 100% agree about that. Because you really get, for some reason, just very basic conversation about what you like, what I don't like, and what you kind of like, and what I kind of didn't like. That really permeates and kind of gives a bit bigger description of the game and a better idea of the game, I think, in terms of the review portion, because we all have our biases and stuff like that, and so because you can get into and you kind of understand the dynamics of, especially like Tom and Z and Sam. I mean, they're a great example. That's probably my favorite thing to watch is the three of them, because they're friends. They've known each other for some time, and I feel like I'm kind of sitting there listening to them talk, and I'm kind of like at their game night or something, listening to them argue or agree or whatever, and that almost gives me a better sense of the game, because I kind of feel like we just got done playing the game together, and then now we're all kind of talking about it, and that's what we do in my group is we'll play and then we'll discuss what did we like, what we didn't like, and then so I do like that banter aspect to it. I think that's important.
Yeah, absolutely. A little bit of a sidetrack back into our original topic, since you kind of talked about that effect of, when you watch the video with Tom and Z and Joe, you kind of get the feeling like, I'm sitting at the table with them. What do you think of the in-play review format? You have played with that a little bit. Scott Nicholson has played a little bit with that. What are your feelings on the place of in-play reviews? Those real quick, not high production quality. You're talking one camera, not the whole game, just like kind of here's what's going on right now. What do you people think? Okay, see ya. I mean, what do you think about those? Is that still something that you feel there's a place for, or you're a fan of, or have you moved away from that? What do you think?
Well, I mean, absolutely. I would, I find game night to be a sacred cow, and I will never ever do it at my game nights, whether that is with my family or my friends, even if people were okay with it, which I don't know that some people definitely would not be okay with it. But I think there is room for that for sure, and I've done it at conventions, and people have been, most of the time, I would say 95% of the time, happy to be a part of it. And so I think it's cool. I think it's interesting, and I think it's a great idea. Scott Nicholson came up with it, and I totally will unabashedly steal that and use it again. And I think it's good. I think there's a way to do it. You kind of talk a little bit about the game real briefly, like 2 minutes maybe, and then you just go into the review. And the folks that have some idea of what the game's about already are the ones that are going to get the most out of it. If you've never heard of the game, they may not be the best format for you. Right. But maybe you listen to, with one ear and kind of read a little bit of the rules, and you watch the video again and go, oh, okay, I got what they're saying. So I think that's an interesting format. So I think it works.
Excellent. All right.
So we got about 20 minutes here, just so you know.
Okay.
Let's see. Next. Okay. I love exploration aspect of House on the Hill. That's awesome. Pearl Jam is awesome. All right. Thanks for the comments. I'm just gonna blow through those. So that sounds rude, but okay. The next question. Okay, do you think there is more interest in watching video reviews because the games are not cheap? Yes, I heard yes, because games are very expensive. They're usually what 30 to 60 bucks and somewhere in
Yep.
there, depending on the game. I think obviously videos are great because you can see the components that you're going to get, and you can kind of get close up and detailed on the quality, and you get a little bit of the rules and a little bit of opinion, and I think it's the best format for doing reviews. I think the podcast like you've got, Jeff, is very good for not necessarily learning the rules because I can't
Yeah.
learn rules from audio.
Yeah.
But if I know the rules, if I played the game, or I know the rules at least, then I like kind of that sort of the background music of a podcast. And because I listen to a lot of podcasts while I'm at work, and I usually have podcasts running nonstop from Monday to about Wednesday or so while I'm at work, unless I'm really busy and I can't be, because I write code, Unless I'm not writing code, if I'm doing other things, then obviously I don't. But I basically use 2 or 3 days worth of podcasts, not nonstop, but pretty much. And so I like that format because it's just, I listen, I'm kind of an inattentive participant, and I think it works really well for that format.
Hmm.
Whereas reading, it kind of takes out, I've got to focus on reading. Even a video, I can kind of minimize it and just listen as well, especially when they get to the review part where they're not demonstrating the game anymore. I don't have to look at the person. I can just minimize it. It's basically a podcast
Right.
at that point.
Yeah, no, I would agree with everything you said. I think that there's definitely a huge amount of value in watching a video review for exactly that reason, for everything that you said. And I think proof of that is that, some of the most popular reviews prior to this explosion of video reviews that we've seen were like, reviews like Enders, where there was just
Tons of
tons and
pictures.
tons of
Yeah.
pictures, and I wanted that in a review. I wanted to see what am I going to get in that box, and does that speak to me? Because I think one of the things that we haven't really talked about yet with board games and board game media is just how incredibly powerful the the allure of components is. I mean, all that you have to do is look at Kickstarter to understand that. My version of Euphoria is no better or worse from a gameplay standpoint than the Kickstarter version. But
Hmm.
boy, pretty cool to have the metallic pieces and pretty cool to have, all of this extra things. And when you look at a picture or when you see a video review and you see the components that you're getting, there's something, at least for me, I don't want to speak for anybody else, very visceral about that. Like, ooh, that looks good. I want that. It's like, ooh, that looks amazing. I want to check that out. And so I'm very, very swayed quite often by graphic design and components. I mean, those are
Hmm.
things that grab my attention. They're not going to maintain my attention, but they grab my attention.
Yeah.
You and I talked, for example, about Bora Bora. I am not a huge fan of the graphic design of that game. I think it's kind of almost garish in some ways. Or I look at a game like Rialto. I don't know who did the graphic design for that. That's not attractive to me at all.
Hmm.
And so I like those games despite that. But when I look at other games where there's just a huge just a beautiful presentation. A video really gives me that feeling, and
Yeah.
uh, great pictorial reviews gave me that feeling. And I really think that that's something that is very important in some ways. You want to have that great production when people are having to spend that much money. I think people have now come to sort of expect that. You're not going to be satisfied with just real basic cards and a board and no real art or anything like that. I mean, I think about games like Stone Age, with the leather cup and Michael Menzel's artwork. I mean, that's just beautiful. It's beautiful to look at. You
Hmm.
mentioned board games as art, and I think that that's something that needs to be conveyed, and video reviews do that better than anything else.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. we'll skip down to some questions here, and then we'll gotta wrap it up because I got about 10 minutes.
Okay. Yeah, and I'm going to
um,
turn into a pumpkin soon, so.
yeah. So Joel, I'm sorry, I'm skipping over a lot of the comments, which I really appreciate. There was some banter back and forth, Jeff, about which parts of the review they watch, and when we were talking about that whole thing. So,
Right.
um, so those were kind of all over the map there. So that's good. So Jason Obermeyer asked, Joel, best episode of the Long V you have heard that you were not in. Um, yeah, I think I saw your comment there towards the end there about the War of the Ring episode. That might be my favorite one. I think I have several favorites, honestly, Jeff. I like the War of the Ring one. I liked your Circus Train one. You also reviewed Lewis and Clark there at the end of that one.
Mhm.
Um, gosh, what else? There was one or two early ones that I enjoyed. I believe the Through the Ages one I really liked. That one kind of sticks out because that's a game I'm kind of lukewarm about. And this discussion that happened during that episode was like, gosh, I should really try to play that again. And that feeling kind of creeps up in me every once in a while, like once a year. I'm like, yeah, I should really play Through the Ages again, give that another shot. So I think maybe I kind of secretly like it, but there's just something about it. It kind of leaves me flat every time I play it.
Right.
So I think anyway, those are my favorite that stick out.
Well,
I
thank
really,
you.
yeah,
I appreciate
yeah.
that.
And I know there's one or two more I'm just forgetting because my brain's kind of fried right now. But there's been one or two that I would definitely kind of put up there.
Well,
Um,
my personal favorite, someone just asked me this question. I know it wasn't directed at me, but there's a gentleman who contacted me and asked if he could kind of interview me for his blog. And he asked me that very same question. And I pointed back to the Few Acres of Snow episode with
yeah,
the late, great Tim Seitz and my friend Justin. And Tim was just such an amazing guy to talk to. And
yes,
I
that's a
am so
great
glad. I'm
yeah.
so glad that I got the chance to record that with him, especially considering how suddenly he left everybody. And I still think about him and his family because he was such an engaging personality. I mean, he was you could just hear the intelligence that the man had, but also his sense of humor, which I loved. He was so quick. It was fascinating to get a chance to talk to him. I really enjoyed it, and it's one of my kind of gaming regrets is that I wasn't able to convince him to come to the WBC that year and get the chance to play with him and meet him. So
Hmm.
that was one that always stuck out to me was that episode.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's yep. Uh, Next, okay, so Darth is I'm with Jeff on Marvel Dice Masters. Well, you know what? I don't see the
Yes.
attraction of that game at all. But if Rodney's still in chat, he can help rectify it. All right, no, that's fine. I'm just teasing him. Uh, my question, Paul, next one. My question was more if you picked up a game that you thought you would not be interested in. Oh, so Paul was referring back to the question if we changed our mind. So he
Oh,
wasn't
okay.
really asking. I misunderstood. He wasn't asking, hey, we play a game, watch a review, and go, oh, maybe I should like that now. It's kind of like, oh, I kind of dismissed that game. I watched a review. Oh yeah, sure. I mean, Tom Vassell obviously reviews almost every release. So he gets a hold of some games, and I'm like, what? I've never heard of this thing. I'll say I'd recently reviewed Metallum and King and Assassins, and I saw Tom's review on Metallum some time ago, and I was like, and I like two-player games. And I sent an email to the publisher. I says, hey, I'm Drive Through Review, blah blah blah. Would you mind if I reviewed this game? And they sent it to me, and they also sent me King and Assassins, which I wasn't interested at all and hadn't really heard about it, which is also a neat little game. But yeah, it's kind of like for me, that's the reason I watched Tom is like, what? Okay, what is this game? I never heard of it. What's the other game he recently? Machi Koro was a game
Mhm.
that he reviewed that I never heard of that thing, never, and he reviewed it. And certain folks will do Kickstarter videos because I'm subscribed to all these guys on their Kickstarter channel or their YouTube channel,
Right.
but I don't necessarily follow the Kickstarter threads on Board Game Geek at all because honestly, there's a lot of noise there. But if Lance or Richard or somebody reviews a Kickstarter game, then I'll take a peek at it honestly, 8 times out of 10, I just ignore it. But but there's sometimes in the game like, oh, that looks really cool. What's the new one that's out? Um, oh, well, no, you told me about this one. The baseball one.
Mike Fitzgerald's game, yeah.
Yeah, that looks awesome.
Baseball highlights 2045 or something like
Yes,
that.
I
Yeah,
backed that thing. I backed
yeah,
it.
so did I. Yeah.
That was from talking to you, and
Right.
anybody that go ahead and give the name of it here. Because I really want people to go check it out because I think that game looks really good. It may be horrible, but I think it looks on the
No, no,
surface
I
very good.
played it. I
Yeah,
played it.
you
It's not
played it.
horrible. Yeah,
What's
it's
it called?
I think it's called Baseball Highlights 2045 or something
Yeah,
like
yeah.
that.
I'll search
And
Kickstarter here. Yeah,
it's a really interesting little a game where you're imagining baseball in the future, where altered humans, cyborgs, are playing against robots that are playing against naturals, just regular people, uh, and so there's all of these different kinds of players, and
yeah,
the game is incredibly streamlined. It's a lot of fun. It is surprisingly strategic, and it's got a little bit of that deck building thing in there
right,
that's built into it as you improve your team and you play series. You can play it just two-player. You can play as a tournament. You can play
right.
a series. It's
Yeah,
just a lot of fun. It's a really neat game, and I'm very happy that I got a chance to check it out again at ConCon in
yeah.
Stamford there, which I just attended. Yeah, that's my spring con. I love ConCon. It's just a
Hmm.
small little gathering of people in Stamford, Connecticut, and it's very well done, very well run and organized. And yeah, Mike was there with Ralph from Eagle Griffin Games, and we got a chance to play it. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, definitely. I pasted the name of it there in the chat. So if you search Kickstarter for that exact title, that'll come up.
Beautiful.
But yeah. So one last question. There's some other comments, but there's a question here. Joel, why does your YouTube banner say downloading myth rules? Because
Yes,
apparently
yeah.
I have no clue how to play this game. No, no. I just I've been like double checking and rechecking myself. Some folks said, "Hey, you played this rule wrong," and I'm like, "Well," and then actually researching, no, I was actually playing it right, and they had it wrong. It's just kind of a joke, and there were some that I was playing way wrong or whatever. But it's just kind of a joke because the rules for that game are not the best. I really think the game is good though.
All right.
Yeah, but
I'll have to check it out.
I don't. It's a dungeon crawl, so I don't know if that's your bag of tea normally, but
Well,
I know
it,
you're
it,
kind of
it,
open.
it is and it isn't. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, it's one of those things where I just don't have the time, I think, to invest in something like Descent, and I'd almost rather pull out an old D&D, and fire up an adventure or two. I've done that with the kids in the past, and
Hmm.
reminded me of how much I enjoyed all that role playing when I was a kid. And it's still something that fires my imagination a little bit as long as I'm not playing a version that's too bogged down in rules. I've been sitting here trying to think of an answer to Paul's question. A game that. Okay. How about this one? 8 Minute Empire Legends. I played 8 Minute Empire and thought it was okay. It was an okay game. It was like,
Huh.
whatever. And then 8 Minute Empire Legends came out, and I'm like, oh, okay, well, they slapped the fantasy theme on it. Yeah, whatever, okay. And I kind of disregarded it and wasn't going to pay any attention to it. And then I saw a couple reviews of it, and I was like, wait a minute, this looks actually much better than 8 Minute Empire. Much more interesting, much more dynamic. This is kind of cool, and picked it up and did not regret it.
Right.
I really enjoy that game. I think it's very clever. A lot of game in a little box, and really enjoy that one. Yeah.
Good. Good. Yeah, that's definitely an improvement. All right. So one last question for you, based on the chat, and then I gotta jet out of here.
Okay.
Um, where is it? Oh, Jason again asks, when are you going to do a long view of Troyes?
Well, I'm gonna have to find someone who wants to talk about it, and if that's
Not me.
Jason, then maybe we can do that. That would be interesting because I there were some things about Twa that I liked, but it didn't stay in my collection. My wife despised it. And if my wife despises a game, that's usually not a good sign for it sticking around in my collection. Um, I did not love the game. There were some things about it that I liked, but I would be happy to talk to anybody who really wants to talk about it because the game's been around for a while and people
Mm-hmm.
do like it. It's a game that resonates with some people. It does use dice in an interesting way. It has some clever card play to it, but it wasn't something that really kind of wowed me. I feel very similar about Twa that I do with Spirium. Spirium, boy, I was really hoping for something much more than I got. I think Spirium is a very clever game. I think it has some great combinations and paths that you can take to victory. But when I think about a game where I'm going to be bidding on cards with people, oh man, I'd much rather play Keyflower. I just think
Mm-hmm.
Keyflower is a much more
Mm-hmm.
interesting game. And as a
Yeah.
theme guy, the theme in Spirium just did nothing for me. I mean, I did not feel like I was in Victorian steampunk England alternative reality. Like, get my Spirium, and I'm going to power my factory. No, no, no. It's
Yeah.
just cards, and I'm getting points, and it's like nah,
Yeah.
nah, nah. So it just didn't. I mean, Kalis, I actually do get myself immersed in the story of that game a little bit
Yep.
and Spirium, no, that's actually going to go on the trade list. So that's my long answer to that question. Yeah, if somebody would like to do that, I think that'd be fun to do.
Alrighty. There you go, Jason. He's calling you out. You
Open
go to the
invitation.
boss. You gotta do it yourself there.
There we
So
go.
oh, it says Richard Ham Rado loves Twa. So there you go.
Oh, he does. All right.
Yeah.
Well, tell
He's
tell uh, tell Richard I would be happy to do an episode with him as well if he would like to talk about Twa. I
all
think
right.
he and I have a different opinion on what game. There's a big game that he loves. Oh, Nations. Isn't it
Oh
Richard that loves Nations? Yeah.
yes, yeah, but
Yes, we have a difference of opinion on that. But maybe that would be just beating the hornet's nest a little too much. I don't know. We'd
yeah.
have to figure that one out. Well, listen, I know you said that you were running out of time.
Yeah, this is saying, Jason, tweet me about the Galaxy Defenders AI because I haven't had any issues with it, but it's feasible I'm playing something wrong. Anyway, sorry. He said no one knows the AI, how the AI works in Galaxy Defenders either, and I was like, I don't know. Seems pretty straightforward to me, but maybe one of us is misunderstanding something. Anyway, we'll take that one offline, as we like to say at work.
There we go. There we
Well,
go.
Geof,
Well, listen, I want to thank you for having me on the show. I think I just preempted you on your own ending of your own show, so I apologize.
go ahead.
But
Well, that's how we're used to doing it there. You go ahead.
No, I want to thank you for having me on, and it's been fun to talk to you about, board game media in general. And I want to say thank you out there to everybody who commented and wrote in questions. Unfortunately, I couldn't see them on my screen, but I'm glad that you were able to kind of patch into all that yourself there, Joel. And
Yeah.
I hope to have the chance to do another episode of my show with you again someday, and really appreciate the opportunity to be on Drive Thru. I've been a big fan of yours for years, and as I said at the top, I'm going to end it the same way. I feel I owe you a big thanks for all that you've done for me, and appreciate it. And so, thanks a lot.
Well, thanks again, Geof. I appreciate that, and I just want to say thanks for having yourself on my show. I've been on your show several times, and it was good, interesting conversation, a little bit of inside baseball. So hopefully, some folks got some inspiration out of it, maybe some ideas, and just something to chew on as far as how we can view board games and talk about board games and record board games and all that stuff. Because it's interesting to me, at least, and I know it's interesting to you and at least a couple of folks in here.
There we go.
But yeah, anyway, we had a good time, and everybody take care. I appreciate you joining. I will obviously post this on the audio feed, and then we'll show up on YouTube later. So take care, guys. Thanks. Thanks,
Thank
Geof.
you, Joel. Have a good night.